This is going to be one of Thorin's 5,000 podcasts that he does. Big won't qualify for the major. Right, look at this. Wow. They talk about it a lot. Richard Lewis's hot take on the Team G2 is right.
Because if people don't know, because he did that epic, how's my milk today, dickhead? How's the data worked out today? Because he did that.
Do you see what I mean? You see how that's like my fucking legacy right now? you see, like, that's it. That's going to replace I Buy Power as the fucking thing people remember me for when I'm dead. That's it. It's gone. Like, you just got the only guy in esports. Well, no, true. D-Man did have. D-Man had a catchphrase. Tosspot had a catchphrase. I've got a catchphrase now.
Everyone who's on this loves, because we all just wish we could get like a fucking create our own catchphrase and zing people with it and get like a sick rant off. And it was basically just like, it was so cathartic if you were an analyst. It's like you want to just do that to every fucking idiot on Twitter and Twitch chat. But here's the problem. Obviously, Richard sort of done that thing where even though like there couldn't almost be worse results to go along with his premise about G2 not actually being good, like they had 21 maps in a row. They did win the 2 big tournaments in a row. They did win every single series and no one really truly challenged them. Right? That makes it look like, right, but he's going to have to say he's totally wrong, isn't he? He's going to have to say I was wrong and all again. No. And obviously he hasn't done that. He's sort of doubled down and gone, no, because here's the logic. I will admit, of the teams, G2 is technically the best, but that's because all the other teams suck right now. Now, look, when he says that they're shit or they suck, that's a hot take. So that's immediately going to make people go, "Oh, okay, you're just refusing." So here's my problem. I will add this caveat. He's not right in the sense that I don't agree with his takes on Huxley and JKS. Like, for example, I don't think Huxley's some top IGL. Spoiler, even after this, I wouldn't even have him vaguely in my top 5 IGLs. I don't give a flying fuck. I think he's just a very average to slightly above average IGL. But the problem I have is this. I have a different philosophy.
And just before Thorin gets into his philosophy, who was it on Twitter the other day? Was it Vu? It's probably Vu. Yes, here it is. I found it straight away. Oh, no, of course it wasn't. Look at this. Yeah, I should have known. This is Vorberg of EG, right? The coach of EG. Did a post, who's the best Danish IGL right now? And overwhelmingly, right, so first of all, Snappy should be on there, but he isn't. And, so he's gone with Carrigan, Huxley, Katie, and Glaive. And then 45.8% of people in the poll from a not insignificant 11,221 votes have all decided to be Huxin because they're fucking teenage morons. And it's like, guys, like, put it this way. I think they'll bottle it. I've said they'll bottle it. But let's be under no illusions that FaZe are still on for a Grand Slam, right? So a career-defining Grand Slam, in my opinion, because I think it makes Carrigan all the closer to Glaive in the discussion about who's the greatest. I also agree Glaive should probably be last out of the 4, right? Just in the sense that it's been so long since Astralis were actually fucking, competitive in any sense. I mean, his individual level of performance has been bad. I guess it's not what we're measuring in this particular poll. But, he's fucking really, really, really struggled to get his team up and running. And I think they've still got good enough pieces, to be competitively relevant. I mean, everyone does the BlameF meme because, as I said, we exist in this fucked up quantum state of being where I have to believe JKS is a star player, one of the best riflers ever to touch the game, but BlameF only gets his kills because he baits people. And it's like, no, that's not true. BlameF is just a superior player in every regard. But Reddit narratives and HLTV narratives can't be shattered by objective fact because it's a bunch of delusional, mentally ill people that, set them in the first place, i.e. fans. That's what fans are. So it's super weird. But anyway, there's no way on God's green earth that Huxley is a better IGL than Carrigan or could ever lay claim to it, even right now. And certainly, like, when I watch Heroic play G2, if you actually watch which one is doing the more intelligent stuff in terms of, like, clever strats and interesting rounds, it's Heroic. It's definitely heroic. The problem they've got is they just don't have any kind of star power that matches up to a Nico when he's on form, a Munazi when he's on form. Huge bottleneck there because Cadian's the AWPer. They don't have anyone. I think even Hunter in his current form. Then they just can't get there. They have a much better distribution of talent, but they don't have the peaks. But what they do is they do super interesting things both on T and CT. And Cadian's got, some god tier reads, but a lot of the time they just can't convert the rounds, particularly against G2 who have their number. As I said, basically you've got G2, you go down a little bit, you have heroic, and then you come down into a fucking cesspit with a sewerage outlet, keeping the cess refilled on a regular basis, and that's the rest of the scene. But yeah, I just want to bring this up because anybody that believes this is, and keep in mind, it seems to be close to 50% of the scene believe this. Then they're just a moron. Right, back to Thorin's philosophy.
I don't believe you can get results like this and be bad. At least something about either your temperament,
yeah, but I didn't say they were
star
bad.
players, or even some of the basics, how you run the game. Something must be working. You know what I mean? You can't really put an empty chair in there and a guy who can't flag and he's just I can't believe I'm getting away with this. We're just winning every series. No, because here's the problem, and you know this, Kassad. You can have a good IGL. I mean, this has happened with super team players and amazing guys. You can have coaches that have the right, but sometimes it just doesn't work. That angle, because people used to say the same thing about a lot of the coaches that had the great players in the NBA. I just had all those players play. Many people had those players and didn't win, or were second best or third best. So the Huxley one I don't agree with. And then very briefly, I never really agreed with the JKS one. Look, this is obviously stupid if you think this is JKS. This isn't like this.
Hang on, pause. If he meant that, yeah, I don't think they're bad as in the players. That's fair. I thought he meant G2. But yeah, Huxley is bad. He's bad. He's bad. He's like a mediocre IGL and the worst tier 1 pro I've ever seen, apart from Hunden.
This is him he's playing from support roles and had a fucking MVP performance. That's a massive old performance. But one, if you had JKS as the starter team, he would be this type of fragging, but as the star. And then two, I never had him having to do that in G2 because I remember when I saw him, he's taking Jackson's role. This is just an upgrade with no downside, got stability. He has no, so that angle. But the area where I do agree with him is, even though it sounds like haterism, this is why it's a great hot take from him actually. If you actually just take the headline statement, G2 are the best, but it's because everyone else is bad. I wouldn't say they're bad. I would say they're flawed. I think every other team has a key fatal flaw, which at the moment, and only because G2 was fragging out of control, is allowing them to win. And the problem is, I think personally, as soon as some of the players drop off, it's going to go down. Remember, the two players who were battling for MVP at Katowice were the third and fourth best fucking players in the team. You're not going to have that in other tournaments. Even Monacy had a fucking chill time. No, it's not going to happen. So what I would say is this. If you look at every other team, Heroic doesn't have quite enough firepower. They've had that problem against lots of teams, and they just fade when they come to the finals. They could beat all these teams that they played in the quarterfinals. They won't in the finals. You've just seen that. Navi obviously has that nightmare where they still haven't finished the lineup. The IGL situation's a fucked up thing.
It's even worse than he makes out. I saw Simple was saying, he did an interview the other day, and he was saying, we need to focus more on communication and help understand the game for young players, in other words, nipple, because they are still doing so many mistakes even in the playoffs. Our communication was the lowest level when we played against Heroic. We just need to make more of our map pool, because as you see, we only had a chance to pick Inferno all the time. He said currently that's the best map for outsiders, Heroic and G2. So in other words, they're saying they didn't get their veto off and they had to play teams that are better on Inferno. We only had 2 to 3 weeks of preparation. We had a boot camp as well, but we just couldn't practice all 6 maps. And obviously, as I said, one of the key factors that no one factors in to G2's success, remember, what had to happen was not only did we get a recession, that means that no teams can realistically spend money to improve. You can go watch my video. It's out on Reddit right now, I think, actually. Roster depression, the worst roster mania ever. Go and watch, an hour and 10 minutes breaking down all of the signings. So usually when you come out of a player break, people are rusty, but the squads are good. Now we've got rusty shit squads. But on top of that as well, there was the introduction of a new map, Anubis, which all the pros say they like, and bizarrely will leave in there as a third map, whether or not they're good or whether or not they practice it, because it's like a map that they think's okay, maybe better than some others. But understand that, like, you take out Dust 2, that fucking wrecked Navi. That wrecked big. You know, that wrecked a lot of these teams, that G2, you know, who didn't necessarily have a great record on Dust 2. That wrecked a lot of those teams that they beat in that streak. So no one factors that in, that for G2 to be successful, we had to lower the entire standards of the earth and also introduce a new map into the map pool that no one's actually good on, except G2, seemingly. And, you know, remember, throughout CSGO history, you have teams that will occasionally just master the map that gets introduced into the pool at the start, and they can ride that out. It's enough to get them through best of 3 series. I'm not saying, by the way, that G2 aren't doing a load of other stuff better than all the other teams right now, but these are all multiple factors as to why this G2 era we're supposedly in is a fugazi. Like, even if they win all of these tournaments, even if they win the major, I will never walk back my statement about them not being good. Well, or rather, not being as good as other teams that have dominated in every other era, because this is the worst era since 2013, 100%. You know, my brain, I can demonstrate it with all this evidence. Like, I think I've talked about it now 3 times on stream with just loads of different context and why, and it just, all of it proves me right, by the way. So I'm hoping that when Kassad and Maui come in, they're gonna back me up here, like, and then we'll see what the scene has to say.
The problem that they were only winning by 5%, and now they lose by 5%. I don't even think that's that big a difference. Liquid just is one player away, and they literally just take turns. Like, they pull names out of the hat, right? We're the 2 that are going to do good this game. You 3 do bad, or you 2 do bad, and Nitro just sits there. Like, every team has some factor. Outsiders still hasn't figured out, like, how to actually win on fucking more than 2.5 maps. You know, like, every team, it goes down. Like, I've never seen it like this at the top. I know it sounds like haterism, because people are just going to think you just crafted it that way. Like, no, go and try and find any other time period in history where it was like this. Because the problem is, basically, if someone's going to say it's the other way, and G2 is leading, then tell me what they've innovated. Tell me what they're doing. Because here's the mad thing.
Exactly.
The Kato final is actually, in my opinion, the nail in the coffin that G2 is a genius lineup. It's just a lineup of really good players that's had some really good results. And here's why I say that. Because every map of the final, they were losing and then just fragged their way back into it. And they did it in all the least convincing ways. Like, you do a rush on T side into B site of banana as T's with P250s and you win against rifles. No, you don't do that. That's not Counter-Strike. That's not, no one drew that up. That's not a flying V, secret tactics, nothing. That's just you ran in and people like Nico just shot everyone in the head with a P250. Like, no, Huxley didn't plan that. No coach planned for that. They can't replicate that. That just happened. So my problem is you only need one player to just go down a little bit in level. You only need one team to get slightly better and they'll just be a top 5 team, but they won't be the best. So I just sort of don't buy it. So come on then. That's a pretty bold one.
Wow. The thing is, like, I have so many things to say. I hear you speak, and it's like it's building up right here. I just wanna,
Let's do it.
The thing is, like, there's so many things, and I agree on most of them. Yeah, because, like, did G2, you know, first of all, are the teams flawed right now? Yes.
Right, so I just do want to point out, right, that people say Thorin doesn't know anything about the fucking game, right? Thorin doesn't know anything about the game. I don't know anything about the game. But surely if 2 of the world's leading analysts agree with what I'm saying, like, I've got some leeway, don't I? Like, the scene is going to have an agonizing reappraisal of what I said.
Does that change the fact that G2 is the best team in the world right now? No.
No.
They have played the best Counter-Strike in the last 2-3 months. They deserve to be number 1, and they're number 1, right? Yeah. That doesn't change. But you need to examine how they got to the title here. Like, let's examine it. How many rounds ended up from a 2v4 into a victory? How many pistols? How many force buys? How many ridiculous rounds? Like you said, like, that has nothing to do with Huxley. That's like Hunter and JKS and Nico just getting absolutely, you know, beast mode and just all together at the same time and just delivering frags all over the place, right? That's like you mentioned, like the coaches as well. It's like, it reminds me of this like glorified coaches that had like the best players and they're counted into these successes of the teams, not about the CS, about the sports. Like, take example of Eric Spoelstra, where he had the fucking Miami Heat with Chris Bosh, Dwayne Wade, LeBron James, who else was there, you know, the supporting crew. And like, for me, he's an average coach. He had Pat Riley behind him, you know, in the great organization, but he did absolutely nothing. You know, he's on the top of that franchise for God knows how many years, but you know, they're shit. He had the best trio, the big three, the first big three. He won a couple of titles. He even lost the first title against Dallas, right?
Yeah.
And then he won, and then all of a sudden he's some sort of, you know, a miracle man. He's not.
Well, he won one
you're
with
the best.
Dwayne and Shaq, just to interject here.
That's Pat Riley. That's Pat
That was
Riley.
Pat Riley. That was Spolstra wasn't there. He was
2006.
an assistant at the
Oh,
time.
okay.
Pat Riley was
Yeah,
the
shut
leader,
up, Maui.
you know,
Shut up, Maui.
So the thing is, like,
These boys know their basketball
what I'm
religiously.
trying to
Don't
say
get
is, like,
involved.
if you examine the rounds they won, the matches they won, it was from a deficit. It was some ridiculous rounds. Just remember the ancient game against who it was. Like they won like multiple 2v4s on A side on post plans. Just absolutely nuts, right?
And listen, I did say that as well. Like at the end of the day, there's rounds you can't legislate for. Like, Hooksy was dead in all of these fucking rounds they're talking about, by the way. And people are trying to reframe this, like, right, so when Carrigan used to die first all of the time, and then his team would, like, would win the round, everyone was like, Carrigan's a bot, get rid of Carrigan. When Hooksy does it, everyone's going, oh, fucking, it's genius by him. He sacrifices himself for the team. It's like, no, it's definitely better if he's still alive and doesn't just die. Oh, nobody dies in a clever way and he gets information and he gives it to his team and all this other stuff. It's like, no, guys, he's just dead because he's shit. Like, you do understand that. Like, it's like, it would be better to even have him, in these rounds that they're winning, 2v4, even just as a distraction. But he's not. He's usually the first one dead, unless he's doing some weird, fucked up fake or mega lurk. And it's like, yeah, in Katowice, by the way, like, when everyone was talking about JKS being like the MVP based on those HLTV stats. It's like, I went and looked at it, right? And as I've said before, you have to watch out for that 2.0 stat because seemingly when they've created the formula for it, and look at me, I'm a fucking troglodyte. I can't, half ogre. I can't understand mathematics. Like, my brain's not wired like that. Numbers don't make sense to me, But like, so I couldn't tell you how they've made that formula and why it's good or why it's bad. But I can say this aspect of it. If you save more, you get a higher rating. And so I looked at it, and it was something like JK saved 16% of the time, and Hunter saved 4% of the time. Plus, Hunter was more impactful in pistol rounds, which are hugely overpowered because they shouldn't exist. So at the end of the day, there was no doubt in my mind that Hunter was the clear MVP in Katowice. And because of that stupid DHL fan vote, everyone's like, and the 0.03 difference between the ratings on the HLTV stats, like everyone's like wanking off about it and like fucking saying, oh, JKS was robbed. Like, no, that's your brain, dickhead. Like, that's actually your brain. Like, Hunter was way more impactful. Man, Kassad's saying it now, like, there were rounds that were lost. They were done. Like, but Hunter would just get 3 kills, like, in a 2v4. It's like, no IGL in the world can legislate for that. Like, you're not doing anything. Like the meme, go kill. You're not doing anything. So the fans have massively overinflated, like, JKS's impact. And keep in mind, this is, like, for me, probably his career best tournament. Although some people disagree and say he was better in 2019. I don't really give a fuck. If he's better in 2019, that still means he was mediocre for all of that time afterwards, which he was. And, Hooksy is just like an IGL who he was so close to being kicked, should have been kicked, but because I think there was mitigating circumstances and people, and the optics of it all, and probably some input from the performance coach and stuff like this, that they gave him longer than any other failing IGL would have given them. And he's just so happened to look out in that his players have all raised their stats. Hooksy hasn't raised his stats, by the way. All the other players have raised their stats. And every other team has fallen apart like a leper in a wind tunnel. So you couldn't ask for anything better.
If those things, like, let's say 10% down on 2 players out of 5, if JKS is his, like, normal form,
which is going to happen, let's be real. He's not going to do like a 1.25 rating or something. No, come on, guys.
The thing is, like, if he goes down by 10%, if Hooksy goes down by whatever percent, like, then Hunter, obviously, who is, who played out of his mind, he was the MVP. Like, if that goes a little bit down, and it will, like, it cannot go, like, all the way up. It has to go down at some point. And if it goes down in the crucial moments, they're going to lose to Heroics, to Navi, who is going to have Simple on top of the form or lineup, sorted out. FaZe who's going to be back in. Therefore, outsiders who are always going to strangle you at some point with their stupid games play, and it's like going to be super difficult for them to replicate. So going and saying they're going to take the Grand Slam, they're going to replicate this, it's very unlikely. Like, is Richard right about the G2 team? Yes. He was probably right about the Hooksy as well, because I agree with that one. You know, not about the JKS one, because JKS is pretty good. I know him, 5 years, whatever. But the thing is...
We call that bias, Kassad. See, it's weird, isn't it? JKS's biggest advocates in the scene are like Kassad, who coached him, Sponge, personal mate, like, Yanko, notorious G2 fanboy. Like, I listen to all their content. I listened to the last episode of Talking Counter, and it's just like that last like 10, 15 minutes about G2. Like, just make it a sponsored segment, guys, because, when I have to listen to my good friend Yanko call JKS an insane player, like, I mean, I don't know, homie. Like, come on. Like, let's fucking knock on the door and ask for Ronnie Real. Like, you know what I mean? It's too much, like, so. But it's fine. It's fine. Like, I get it. He's like, the fans inexplicably love him. He's got friends in the media. It's fine, I guess. But no, he's not an insane player.
Can they replicate this? Absolutely no. So I agree with you that 10% down with those two players, they're just gonna end up in the quarters, and then they're gonna be seeing, or in the group stage, they're gonna be seeing like what.
Is
about
this Maui off the top row?
And those
you're gonna kill me, Maui. Come on.
But
part of me actually wonders on that as well. Is that also part why he's doubling down? Because I wouldn't want to give up that catchphrase. Like, you want to sort of wait until bide your time and bring it back. So if it boomerangs back, it's going to be even better, isn't it? Like, if you can sort of rewind the same clip, but then it applies like next Pro League, it's going to be twice as spicy. Come on then, Maui. Where you
I will add, by the way, if let's say something insane happens right now and like one team gets mega good or G2 just fall apart or whatever it is, I'll be insufferable. Like, I'll be insufferable. It will not matter that you won a Katowice. That will not save you. Like, you flop at the major, like that dickhead clip. I will get Ghoul. I'll get Ghoul Zap to fucking make it with even like more ridiculous noises and fucking MLG horns in it. I'll send it to the players. I don't give a fuck. Like, the fans have been so fucking insufferable. So I'm just saying, like, just 100%, like, but it's not gonna happen because, as I said, right now the scene is full of like fucking, veterans who should have like, just having a family as well. Yeah, just taking some time off, right? Nothing wrong with that. But at the end of the day, once you've fucking blown your beans and you've got the fucking baby on the way, you've got 9 months to be bedding in a new player. Why didn't these orgs do that? You've got 9 months to get a 6 player who plays on certain maps and does certain things. They didn't do that. So instead you just choose a stand-in while they have their paternity leave. There was no like forward planning, no forward thinking for the teams and all of this. And you got loads of fucking, because, loads of the veterans have hit that age now, late 20s, where that's where you're going to start having kids, getting married, wanting to explore other things in life. And so that we've got loads of them in the scene right now. We've also got this like fucked up thing where, because all of the teams are stunning. JKS top one easy, like, cause cheers for the $5, brother. So because all of the teams have become business partners in these like fucked up franchise leagues, like a lot of them don't even contest like using sub players and stuff and going, okay, you can borrow this player, you can have this player, don't worry about it, we'll let this player explore options and stuff, because it just doesn't make sense to dilute your own product. So there's loads of like factors, by the way, which is making it like stand-ins are more conducive right now. And unfortunately, while I think that's healthier for the players, it's not healthier for the scene. It's not healthier for the skill ceiling.
Seems like you're a bit torn in the middle, maybe.
Well, I guess, I would, because there's a few angles obviously here. Sure. There's a lot of things that you unpacked in that whole
like
take.
Your beautiful jawline,
where Richard's take is the classic esports double down, and probably also like why it's flawed, is saying that the level of CS is really low right now, because it's definitely not. It's definitely not that low. Like, yes, there's teams with flaws, but all of FaZe's wins last year were against
Kassad's face. I just want to point out Kassad's face.
Bruh.
Like, I don't know, Maui, you're from NA, so you've seen some shit. Like, so I respect it. I respect what you're trying to say, mate. But, like, the level is really low right now. Like, it is. You know, if complexity, like, I understand, you know, like, the HLTV rankings is sort of like a power ranking in the sense that it's a reflection of any moment in time who theoretically is the best. But it's what we've always used. And that complexity team, you could pick any era. And, like, real talk, like, they wouldn't be close to, like, top 20 in fucking 2015, 2016. You know what I mean? Like, that's just, they're the 10th best team. That OG team, OG at tournaments using a coach as a stand-in, just lost their IGL. Again, personal reasons. They're 8th in the world, are they? Again, they wouldn't be anywhere near the top 20, probably, in any other era. So, the level is absolutely low, like, 100%. Tank, unbelievably low. But anyway, I'll let Maui continue to fucking roast me.
Flawed teams too. Like you look at that ENCE team that they beat, or the ENCE team that they beat at Pro League. Like that team had barely any firepower. I don't even know how they're making grand finals. You look at the Navi team that was beating. That was during a war. There's literally a war going on when FaZe is winning all these championships. So Navi have that in the back of their minds. And then you think about like FaZe beating G2 at Kato last time. Also, that was also clearly a flawed lineup because they didn't end up winning anything with Alexi B. So I think that. Like, this is kind of a take that you could always say, like, every time there's a championship, it's almost like...
Yeah, but, like, my specific take is that not only are the teams are flawed, like, in any given era, you'll have flawed teams. I don't dispute that. But never this many. 6 stand-in lineups, or, and if you expand it to, like... brand new lineups, it's like 8 at ESL Pro League. That's never happened before. That's never happened. Go show me where that's happened. It's never happened before. Never happened before. So you can go and fucking show me that if you want to. And then on top of that, like, one flaw is fine. Every team has a bad player. Every team has a guy who's dipping in form. Every team might have a dysfunctional IGL at some point. But the point is, every team has like 2 flaws now. There's flawed teams, and then there's flawed fucking teams, and that's what we've got an abundance of. Like,
it's even if it is the number 1 versus number 2 team, the number 2 team is inherently flawed. That's why they're not number 1. Like it's circular logic, which is why that's always going to be a bad take by saying like the level is so low of anyone that's not a champion right now. It's like, well, no shit, that's why they aren't winning. Like that's just in itself. Like you can't just say that because it doesn't mean anything in itself.
It does.
I think like yes. The theory is like fine, but if you look at the Counter-Strike that is being played right now, it's not very complex at this moment. It's not very high level. Yes, the firepower is there. People can shoot.
Heroic's playing great CS. I think Heroic's playing like wonderful. I think they're playing.
And what did I just say?
Right now. Duncan mentioned like the innovations of the
they're
team.
hindered by their firepower,
but
that's the only team you can say it about.
Remember, like, okay, they won everything, but they had like this thing with grenades, right? On Inferno, on Overpass, on these things, like new smokes. Like even when they played Mirage, they were the ones with the combinations of smokes for top, middle, and short, which everybody took over. Like they changed the defaults, they changed these things. What do we see changed in the last few months from any team, not just G2. We don't want to bash on them only, but like any other team, there was no innovations, even though we have new maps. Yeah. You know, it's like the defaults are pretty like, you know, wide and like it's like super basic right now. There is no advanced.
Like every T side I watch now, like is just a basic execute, and if you get 2 kills, you win the round. That's like every team pretty much from 3rd downwards. Like even Liquid play like that. And keep in mind, by the way, we're talking about flawed teams. Like Liquid was flawed, you know, when they had Stewie, right? They were flawed. He wasn't the smoke criminal anymore. You know, he was in his IGL phase. He wasn't playing particularly well. Everyone was saying he was washed. That was one flaw on the team. Everyone else was doing, you know, comparatively well. But then, like, they go out, they make some changes. They bring back Nitro. You know, they bring in OC. And OC isn't competing at a tier 1 level right now. He's not a dynamic AWPer. He's not an aggressive AWPer. He's whiffing easy shots on top of all of that because his confidence is shattered. You know, he's one of those players, another classic American player that smurfs in tier 2, but just can't hit the heights in tier 1. But then you factor in, Nitro is actually statistically worse than Hooksy right now if we track it over like the last 2 months. And it's like, well, that's untenable. But they're the 3rd best team in the world. And so what they're doing is, they brought a guy from Valorant back to do basic execute style so they could rely on Elige, rely on Naf, rely on firepower in the team. And instead, what's ended up happening is Elige's form has dipped as well. Like, he's having one of his worst periods ever in his career. So I guess technically that's 3 flaws. And they're the 3rd best team in the world. So I'm just saying, it's like, it's a uniquely bad era. It is a uniquely bad period of time for CSGO. 100%. And I see you in the chat, Maui. You should jump on fucking Discord and we can argue about it after we've argued about it virtually.
Like it was before when Astralis was on top of the food chain, right? And they were like beating everyone. Like you said, they had so many innovations with different things, especially utility.
Made
right
this
now,
point
we're not
myself.
seeing anything. We're just seeing like super crazy good clutches and headshots, and everybody's like, going nuts about it. What happens when that stops? When headshots don't come?
Yeah.
Where do you go? Who do you turn to?
Well,
Right?
you
Not
turned to
Hoopsy.
Nico because Nico didn't even perform that well in these grand finals. Like, that's why I think G2 can actually keep giving. Also, is because they won this tournament without Nico actually performing at the level we know he can perform at. It was Hunter, it was JKS. So when those guys dip 10%, just imagine Nico goes up 10% to his normal level, and then you're just back to the
And
same
they
kind of
stay
firepower
like,
level.
yeah, cool. Imagine if I win the lottery 7 times in a row.
Hey, I
It happened. I would be a billionaire, but it doesn't
Hey, I'm
happen.
just saying, I was on that early HLTV article saying the way Hooksy's gonna call is gonna be good, and it did.
Maui,
it was.
there is only 5 frags per round. Like, there is only 5 frags per round, right? If Hunter is on top of the 4, Monassi and JKS, there is only 5 frags. Not everybody can have like 2.5 rating or whatever, right? It's just, if you think it rationally, you will come to the same conclusion. I don't think it can last for that long simply because the teams will improve. I don't think. How long does it will take for Navi to get their shit together? Couple of months.
I mean, how long is
1
this war gonna
month?
go on?
Before the match.
Can't keep putting it on the war neither, because now, listen, I get that the war is obviously like a huge mitigating circumstance, but what's happened as a result of the war is they've changed their recruitment policy. I'll also add, behind the scenes, I don't think Blade is. I don't know if Nipple was a Blade choice, by the way. And then on top of that, though, Simple's just done. Like, he's just sick of it. He's just, part of that is coming from the war. Another part of that is playing a year with SDY, right, which would break anyone. So that team right now is just going to be, think of them as fulfilling contractual obligations. I even agree with your take, Maui, by the way. I agree that Simple won't be in the top 3 this year. I think he'd be lucky to get top 5. I think he's so checked out right now. I see Valorant in his future. I'm looking into a crystal ball and seeing him going and getting a 6-figure, 7-figure deal in fucking Valorant. You know what I mean? But Navi is still like 6th in the world. And look what we're saying about them. It's like, if you just look at like 2016, you go down all of those teams and you go, oh, fucking hell, yeah, they could beat those dudes, and they could beat those dudes, and they could beat those dudes. You think about like 2018, Astralis are way above everybody else, but it doesn't suddenly like, it's not like Astralis never had any competition in that era, but like G2 just blow everyone out the water, not because they're setting a high bar, but because everyone's level is so low right now.
It's
not
possible
the war.
now.
It's not the war that's stopping them. It maybe slow them down, but it doesn't stop them, right? They can get a proper player and start like dedicating, that player to the team instead of just floating different players, right? So in the interview, the thing is like we have to mention this, like when we talk about Navi, the interview that Simple gave was just, unbelievable to me to hear it. Like
It's
he
so
said, like
ridiculous.
I wanna ask the coach for the same questions, like the questions about the positioning for connector and stuff like that. He said like, yeah, well, sometimes I wonder the same things. Like you have to ask Blade, never mind, like whatever. What the fuck does that mean? Like, are you guys talking to each other, or like what is the?
No, he's
Totally, like, if you're
fully
the best player
checked
in the
out.
time,
The
LeBron
greatest
James
player of all
of this
time
fucking
can't be
planet,
asked.
and I have a coach and I have a question for him. Like, hey, why are we playing whatever, like zone, and we're not playing man coverage because it's fine for me to go 1-on-1 against a pleb somewhere who can be like, I can dominate him 10 times out of 10. Why are we playing zone and I'm getting bodied every single game and I end up not being in the playoffs? Surely that's a question that you ask. That's a fair question to ask your coach. Like, listen,
Yes.
I can give you more. Like, why are we doing this? I can give you more. but he said like he doesn't know what's going on. So that's a very boring sign. Yeah,
By the way,
they're gonna fix it.
I definitely agree with Kassan. I don't think like the war alone can be used to justify like them not being the best or them not being good enough to beat like FaZe or fucking G2 now, or Heroic or whoever, right? Because look, it is a factor. I'll give like a percentage. Like they get some leeway, they get a bit of a pass, but they don't get a complete pass in this sense, which is, yes, as an indirect consequence of the war and its perception, it does seem like Navi, if you just look at their actions, are on the train of we will not recruit a Russian player. The ones who are here can stay because they're really good and they were part of like what made our great team, but we're clearly not considering anyone who's Russian to be the next player. And the problem with that, Maui, is that is not something that actually is necessitated by the war. I think it's more perception that Navi is the Ukrainian org and they're the big dog in the region, and it would just be like, if you just look at how their players are getting attacked constantly over any slight seeming infraction or like wrong thing, like I think the org just knows, like, as sad as this is, it's just not worth the PR no matter what it would do in the game. But the reason why I bring that up is because now is literally, this is a hot take, but it's essentially the main thing that probably holds them back is refusing to consider Russian talent. Like, we're in a golden era of Russian talent. Like, genuinely, I could list you like 10 to 15 names that aren't even the ones on Cloud9. They're not even the most famous ones. I'm not going to say.
Like, while we're talking about hot takes, like, I know one win fucking lost to some dog shit team in the RMR, but I do think that team's going to be legit. Actually, I look at that 1-win team and I think, yeah, you know, Decor's fucking sick. They brought Boomich in, that sort of thing. Like I legit think that team is like one of the ones that's gonna slowly and steadily climb over the year, I think.
Ronax are the ones that you all know. Like, if you're looking for what they want, which is like some firepower and like a rifle, like, that's exactly what they've got right now. They've got so many in the Russian sea, it's crazy. So that's even itself maybe a mini hot take. That's the main thing I think holds them back right now. I don't even know about the other shit, because the whole thing with Blade and with the MPL guy and with Simple, like, those are all problems where it's like, they don't have to exist. Like, we don't have to have a guy who's never played Tier 1 CS before. It doesn't have to be a guy, Blade, where you need time to work him in. Like, you're Navi, bro. You are Real Madrid. You just sign the guy who's good now, put him in the lineup tomorrow, and win in 2 days from now. You know what I mean? And if you're Simple, it's like, bro, like, do you actually think it helps? Like, if there's one thing I'll say about Blade, it's a good thing and a bad thing. He is like a little robot. He doesn't give a fuck what you say in a press interview, mate. Like, you're not going to use the press to manipulate him into doing. He's going to do what he wants anyway. So I also just think that whole shitfest of like the NPL guy clearly isn't good enough yet. Blade's going to stick with that, which is probably going to limit the window of when Simple can win. And then obviously the whole war thing's been the cap recruit. I think the whole thing's just a fucking nightmare. So that's by the by.
It's a between the lines that Simple like try to like indirectly like, you know, take a shot and say like, listen, this is what I'm bothered
with.
Yeah. Like, you know, and that's fine. If there is no communication, just create some sort of communication and deal with the problem and, you know, play the next.
And remember, Simple did something similar back in the Zeus and Edward era, if I rightly recall, just before they gave him that like mega contract. So anyway, I guess we can leave it there. Maui, jump on Discord. I'm going to go get a fresh cup of coffee. And then let's have a chat about your outrageous takes. How dare you defy your esports Jesus? I hope you're ready to repent.
Hello. Okay, this should work.
Yeah, how you been, man? I haven't talked to you. Like last time I think we talked, it was just before or just after. Was it Rio? Has it been
it might have been during that. I don't know. That event was stressing me out, so I might have messaged you. You're a great therapist in some regards. Right? So like, you know, like,
everyone comes to me when the times are hard. Like, it's so funny.
When American healthcare fails me, aka I do not have healthcare, then as a freelancer, that's just, you know, you're one of the few people that can be a resource.
Well,
so
I mean, it's been going super good, man. I saw you do some color commentary with Anders as well, which I thought was like kind of rad. Nice to see you know, flex your broadcast muscles.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean that was fun.
I think that podcast as well that we just watched. I think that's probably the best one. That's like, it's nothing against Talking Counter. I think between that and Talking Counter, you've pretty much got all the bases covered. Like, I think it's a golden era of CSGO podcasts right now. We've actually
I'm really
like 3 or 4 good ones.
It's kind of weird that you don't even mention HLTV confirmed in this conversation, though.
Not so weird. Do you mean Chad and 2 mannequins? That's what I call it. But
I'm not like gonna comment further on this statement. I just think it's really odd that you decided to exclude them.
Yeah, you're right. Like, no, I mean, listen, it's for me, what makes a good podcast, you see, is if you're going to do a podcast that has like multiple personalities on it, and it's a multiple personality disorder, which, you know, that would describe a hot take point made brilliantly. But, you know, if you're
That's just borderline.
Yeah, you've got to have like, I mean, for me, I want people like, I want crosstalk, I want arguments, I want long fucked up tangents and anecdotes. I also don't want you to be carrying water for fucking professional organizations. I want you to be like a little bit iconoclastic, you know. There's got to be a little bit of friction there. Like it's like a golden era for comedy podcasts right now too. Like every comedian's got a podcast. There's so much good content. They're all going on each other's shows. They're all riffing, and it's like we've got that with CS:GO now. But unfortunately, HLTV confirmed. The word I would use is safe. It's just a bit safe. Like Chad is the edge, and actually he's quite restrained, you know, compared to the Chad we know, you know, on that show. So
yeah, despite the Chad that's probably there at the hotel breakfast, or what he's saying in the green room, you're getting a lot of just reading the news and light analysis of the news, which is, you know, in itself, it actually serves a purpose. I think that the most popular podcasts in the sports section of Apple Podcasts are basically just reading the news. So, you know, it actually does make sense. There's a blueprint there. There's a rubric that if you just kind of read the news and give a light take on the news, the fans do appreciate that because they're not actually reading the news. And some people are actually getting all their news from podcasts. But in terms of what people that are really, they got their ears to the ground, that's probably not what they want. And the people that are more vocal on these spaces, they probably don't want that, including myself.
Yeah. Well, it's also as well, like, I mean, because the average fan is a moron, they need to be told what to think. And so what they do is they seek out sources, like, you know, people they like, and then they go, well, I'll just agree with all of their opinions, so what do they think? It's what always made me laugh about that Reddit thread where, like, some dude, like, accused Chad of stealing all of his opinions off Reddit and then using him as their own.
Yeah,
where it's like, where it's like, actually, it's the other way around. Like, if you're on the fence about something because you're a pleb fan, you go to your favorite personality and you go, I'll just adopt theirs as mine, you know?
There were people that were, I saw like more than one comment that was saying that my air quality take about Zywoo was something I stole from a forum or something, and it's like,
yeah, I saw that too.
I legitimately worked pretty hard to come up with that take. That was a lot of digging for me to actually come up with that, and it's because truthfully, I think I am really sensitive to air quality, and when I first landed in Katowice, like day one, I was like, I felt it. I legitimately felt it right away, and that's why I even thought of looking it up, and that's why I thought of looking at the history for that data. And so for someone to say that like I stole that is preposterous and also kind of demeaning too.
It's probably the most outrageous esports opinion I've ever seen. Like, you know, very rarely do people try and like correlate like scientific data. It's like, it's so crazy what you did, and I'm guessing obviously deep down, you know, you don't think it's real, but
no. Okay, let's be honest to the audience here. Do I think that is 100% real? No. Do I think that it could affect some players more than others? Yes. That's it. That's all it is. It's not that I think that Zywoo every single day that he wakes up is affected by air quality, but I mean, they're like a lot of people live linked, and like what I have heard too, like those chess players or whatever, if they have worse air quality, it could affect them more. And I mean, I don't think Zywoo is. I think there's many players that it could happen to, but you know, it's possible because I mean, simply speaking, I notice it when I'm in an area with worse air quality. I cough more.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you know, I used to be an asthmatic as a kid, and you know, if you grew up where I grew up, we grew up in like a fucking mining town, right? When it wasn't just a mining town, we actually. So what they did is we had like a fucking steelworks, a coal mine, you know, all a chemical factory, like all the shit that's bad for you. Like basically, it's just, you know, it's just where they put all the fucking working class shite, and you live in these terrible houses, like with like, you know, thin walls, single glazed windows, you know, and like guess what? Everyone was asthmatic in my neighborhood. Everyone had one of them little blue inhalers, you know, and then it's like but I moved away. I'm fine. Like when I was, put it this way, I still used to get a bit wheezy like when I used to go up north, like as an adult, you know, when I thought I'd never need an inhaler. I went out to America, right? Lived out in America. Never had a single, didn't even get a tight chest like once for like 6 years or whatever it was. So, I mean, I get the air quality shit, like for real, like 100%. But obviously, to track it in the way you're doing related to ZWoo's performance, it's brilliant. It's almost like performance art. I really appreciate it.
I did you see what Nerd CS did? He made that graph about what I said and the correlation between ZywOo's performance and air quality, and there is a greater correlation between ZywOo's and air quality versus say Simple's or I think anybody else's. So there actually might be some truth to it at the end of the day. But no, beyond that, I mean, I think you and people that are from your kin are probably also reading Marx's manifesto a little bit closer.
Yeah, we are. We're a bunch of commie scum. You are right. Yeah. So anyway, let's do it then. This is like a supplemental to the podcast. This is fantastic. So yeah, like listen, I think broadly we sort of do agree a little bit, but the one area of contention seems to be that you don't think this is a particularly bad era of CSGO right now, which I find staggering because I know you appreciate the fine details. You probably appreciate the game on a level that I can't, especially having watched it for like 20 years. You know, your brain starts to sort of take little things for granted, and you know, you look more at big picture stuff than little minutia, because your brain thinks you know it all because you've seen so much of it. So I'm very surprised by that, because like when I sit down and watch Counter-Strike these days, man, it's tough for me. This is like, it's been really hard to even want to watch the games because I don't think I'm not seeing any innovation. I'm not seeing any, like, not even cohesion from most of the teams. Like, basically G2 appear to have become the #1 team in the world by just doing very simple T-side execute.
So yeah, I'll play back at that, because I think that's a misrepresentation of the meta that we're seeing right now, and I don't think anybody has necessarily characterized the meta in terms that can be generally appreciated, and I'm going to do it right now, and that is that Heroic are pushing forward what the meta of CS is. And when I've talked to pros, when I've talked to coaches about what they're seeing right now, they're saying that everybody wants to play like Heroic. And what that is,
and I did make that point as well. I've been saying for months, I think Heroic are tactically the best team right now, but they're like bottlenecked by their firepower, essentially.
Okay, yeah, and I think that's an incredibly fair assessment, because it's more or less what I've gathered from the people that I've talked to and how I view the game myself. Because what we're seeing now is in the mid round, we're seeing these constant reaggressions, and it's basically like 2 to 4 man plays where even if you're man advantaged, you are going to do something proactive to take space away from your opponent. And this is mostly talking about the CT side. You're going to do something proactive to take away space from your opponent, and what that does is you're pushing your opponent back, and you're never on the back foot, because what a lot of teams, including Navi, are doing right now, and what they've done in the past, like Cloud9, Outsiders included in this, is that they just like to sit back. They like to gamble stack. They are almost basically playing a 50-50. They're making a light read on what their opponent's going to do, and so they say, okay, based off of the nades that we've seen in the first 40 seconds of this round, we think it's going to be an A hit, so we're going to gamble 4A. And that's why so many teams ran into the gambit stack. Like, that's what I was characterizing it as, is that you'd see just fucking 4 people there and some crossfire that doesn't even exist, because they decided all of a sudden they're just going to put everybody there and no one's even going to defend the other bomb site.
Right.
And what I think Heroic's doing is that they're always playing with information. And that's kind of something that people have thought about in the past, like 2015, 16 SK, kind of LGSK did this with Fur, like, and they would do it with Fallen, where they would basically like one person would kind of peek around a corner here and there. But what Heroic did is that they started doing it with like a group effort so concertedly that it's now like they're pushing the limits of like how much you can gamble aggressively. And so what G2 do is they also do that, but they kind of do it to a lesser extent. They do a little bit less. And even people, I talked to somebody on Liquid, like Naf or Yakinder, I forgot. Like I was in a group conversation with them, and it was kind of like something like G2 is doing this also, that they're kind of adopting the heroic style, and that's kind of like what I'm seeing is that a lot of people are adopting this style where after 45 seconds in the round, they're just gonna make a play at something, and I think that's kind of what the meta is right now, where it might not look like you're changing the game necessarily, but you're making a very concerted effort in the mid round to figure out what is going on with your opponent. And then even if you win or lose that engagement, you are able to then influence your next decision. And here's like a weird way that this all got misinterpreted for a brief while, is that in 2021 and 2022, Chad kept saying when he was watching heroic games, and this was poor. I'll call Chad out for this. He said heroic are the most reactionary team in Counter-Strike, and I had to tell Chad, like, off the mic, off broadcast, no, what you mean is proactive, not reactive. Right. Because what heroic are doing is that they're always doing something, and he was kind of like, his side of that was like, oh no, based off of like what they see in the beginning, they're gonna make a play later. And it's like, well, yes, but like the play that they're making is so forward thinking that like I consider it proactive, and I think like by definition that it is more proactive than it is reactive. And I think like if you really follow the chain of thought, I guess it could be reactive, but like I think by like based off of what people see, it is reactive or proactive. So basically, in short, heroic are just playing a very mid-round proactive round of Counter-Strike, and I think that is what is unique about today's CS.
Yeah, no, I think that's pretty astute, and I sort of I lean more towards your idea of it being proactive than reactive. Because obviously I think Cadian's a good enough IGL, certainly better than Lord Hooksy. Just to get that in there, get another.
That's fine. I agree. Right? I agree.
I think he's good enough to be thinking ahead. Like, okay, this is where we're going to start, and then this is where we're going to pivot to in the mid round. If where we start doesn't, give us the space or the control that we want. And so, yeah, I think it's proactive. I think Cadian, I think heroic clearly going into rounds with a plan A that is clearly defined and a plan B that is clearly defined, tacked on to the plan A to the point where it's almost so seamless, it's all just one plan. I totally agree. I mean, when I watch them play, they're so fluid in terms of what they do. And so I understand like Chad's point when he says it's reactive, because, he's watching a round fall apart as a caster, and then heroic do the optimal play to salvage the round, say. And so it looks like you're reacting to the first thing. But the thing is, going into that round, they're so well drilled, they know if a round falls apart in this way, this is the optimal, way that this is the next thing you pivot to. So I think heroic are a wonderful like technical team. But the problem you've got right now is I look at their lineup and I just don't, unfortunately, that you need too much form in terms of firepower to just get them over the line. Like, they were a little bit unlucky that Jabby didn't turn up in the final. Like, we could have got all 5 maps if that was the case, but they're still going to be eternally bottlenecked by the fact that Cadian will never be an elite level AWPer. And I feel like Shush and Tezes are like great supportive players, but that their ceiling just isn't high enough to elevate them to a G2 level. But I don't think any other team is even copying like anything close to heroic style, with the exception of G2.
I think OG, when I was watching the Blast groups and everything, I think that OG is trying to copy them. I don't know if everybody is. I mean, I think it's kind of a far stretch to say that everybody is. The worst thing that happened
was obviously Virtus Pro winning the major, because now so many teams are trying to play like them and do this like weird fucking min-maxing style, and it's trash. Like, even Vitality are doing shit like this now. Like,
I think Vitality's been doing it even longer than that. I mean Vitality's been doing it for I think they've been doing it since third quarter of last year, and that's why I think Vitality games have been kind of boring, honestly. Like,
I mean, well, that and Apex is like, I don't know, he needs to be fucking put out to pasture, doesn't he?
So, okay, do you want to talk about that? I think there's an equal discussion for Apex or Dupree. I think they're both. I think based off of role, Dupree is heavily under delivering, and I think based off of role, Apex is under delivering. So I think you can kind of go with either of them. I think they're both at fault here, but I think that everybody else is doing okay. You know, I think Magisk is doing all right in his anchor roles. I think Spinks is kind of inconsistent, is how I'd label it, and Zywo's obviously very, very. He's an S tier player.
It's interesting to me that so many of the fans have like turned on Spinks and said he's like the one that's like under delivering. I mean, the only other player I've seen criticized is Apex, but let's like be absolutely clear. Like, he is in career worst form. Like, between November and February, he's on a 0.79 rating. Like, it's AIDS watching him play right now. It's so bad. And it's like, if you're an IGL, you know, like, there are certain places to hide, but not when you're an IGL that, like, in the context of the team, still has to deliver a little bit. And on top of that, you're betting in a new star who, you know, theoretical star that's going to supplement the firepower of Ziwu, but you're also doing that with, you know, like I said, Dupree, who I agree, he's underperforming, but he's got mitigating circumstances. Like, he's got a baby on the way, you know? Like, probably in the back of his mind, you know, there's loads of shit going on. You know, probably should have gone on holiday sooner. In fact, I know he should have gone on holiday sooner because Vitality tried to get Config as a stand-in, and then Nip swooped him away by offering Config a long-term contract. So, you know, at the end of the day, I can forgive Dupree underperforming. I can't forgive a 0.79 rating over a two-month period. I can't forgive that. And it's Apex as well. He's 29. Like, what's the upside to keeping Apex as the IGL? I don't think there is any. I don't even think he's a great IGL, frankly.
I think that he's, when you look at the top 10, in the bottom half of that. That's for certain. And
I mean, his T-sides are cheeks. There's nothing sophisticated about them.
I think the only people, if you look at HLTV's top 10 that are, you would say, a worse IGL, probably Mezzy. That's probably that's the short list for me. I think even Nitro, who a lot of people think is one of the more predictable IGLs to play against, probably still calling a better T side, if we're being completely fair here. I thought there were moments where I liked Vitality's T side. Namely at the end of 2021 when they were still playing with an all-French lineup, but after that I haven't seen a glimpse of what I was liking when Kyojin was on the lineup. And when I say that, I mean, like,
terrible. Like,
of course, but I actually think that Apex got more mileage out of him than he was worth, because you look at Kyojin now and he's even worse than when he was on Vitality.
Yeah, so, terrifying, isn't it?
In some ways, credit to him for getting more out of his player there. But once this lineup went English and, you know, mixed international, I'd say, then I think that he's been a hindrance.
So look, I'll feed it back into the broader talking point then. If we agree that Heroic are the best team tactically, and that G2 have the benefit of not being quite as good tactically, but just having a higher skill ceiling and form players right now. And we're talking about the 3rd, 5th, 6th, and 8th best teams in the world, all being like massively flawed and not playing particularly good Counter-Strike. How can you potentially make an argument that this era is like comparative to like 2022, 2021, certainly beyond that? I said it on stream. Okay. I think in terms of the quality of Counter-Strike we're seeing played, and I'll bring up the stand-in stuff in a moment, but this is actually worse than the online era.
Okay. My argument begins with that in 2022, the second place team for the whole year was Navi, which was under the stress of having a war that was affecting half of their team for the duration of it. And I think that made simple play worse. And I think that is in itself an argument that they were flawed drastically, like drastically flawed. And for example, we saw Navi and Simple, for that matter, not play as well in the latter half of that year. Like he had a bit of a drop off, like at Rio, at Pro League. I mean, like multiple events. Basically, after Cologne, it felt like two teams dropped off: FaZe and Navi, for my money. And I think that you would say that if you look at those, if you look at that roster, if you look at the teams behind Navi, like you would say that there are flaws in that lineup, in those lineups. Beyond that, like say I'm looking, for example, I'm looking at HLTV's top 20 April 2022. Number 2, Navi, and I just explained my case for that. Number 3, Cloud9, and I am literally saying Nafi is the worst IGL in like the top 15. Like I think he's terrible. Like I think he has been detrimental to their success. So I don't even think, like, if you're considering them, like number 3, the number 3 team there, right there, you have Hobbit, played pretty well. Axile played it fantastically. Shiro also played amazingly. Inters, we have found out, is not the problem. And Nafi, terrible. So yeah, horrible lineup, playing horrible CS in terms of structure, but great players. Heroic was still finding their form. At the time I'm looking at this, they were number 4, and they were putting things together. They actually, at this point, they still had Refresh, and Refresh wasn't really fragging out as a player. They had great team synergy. They looked pretty good when you'd like buy the eye test, but then when it came in those 50-50 duels in the mid round or wherever, it was always the other team that was coming out on top because nobody other than Stown, it felt like, could actually win a fight. I don't know. I could go down this list. And then number 5 was ENCE. They had Spinks, actually. They were a pretty good team, but then you look at the rest of the lineup, it's like, what is this team actually even doing without Spinks? They're not doing really anything. So, like, I just think that the whole argument that the level of teams right now is low is something that I could have probably said for everything forever. I think that I could say this for also most sports in general right now.
But okay, but hang on, right? So
okay,
let's go to, let's say 2015, right, which should be significantly a weaker era, right? Shouldn't it? Because we've got like an additional fucking 7+ years of CS where everyone raises the ceiling and blah blah blah, right? Like at the end of 2015, you've got the Fnatic team, who, if you remember Time Travel LAN, the best piece of CS content ever made that no one watched, right? It's got to be said. If you remember Time Travel,
I watched a handful of them. They were quite, the discussions
handful?
were really good. I watched. I watched a handful. I'm not gonna lie to you and kiss your ass and tell you I watched all of them. I didn't watch all of them. I watched a lot of them. I watched a handful of them.
What a thing to say to someone, dude! Like,
hey,
I cooked you a meal and you said it's alright. It's alright.
I watched. Let me see. I watched more than 4. I watched more than 4 of those. Okay.
All right, that's fair. You watched it more than anyone else, probably. So.
Yeah, but honestly, I hope so.
It's fine. It's fine. But anyway, so okay, right? We have the Fnatic, the great Fnatic lineup that were like second in that, right? Then you have the Envious lineup back with Kenny S and Apex Kishim, like the Cluj Poker winners, right? Yeah. You have the newly formed team Question Mark that went on to be like TSM, Astralis. But that's obviously with Cajun B. So I guess you could say it's flawed, but I mean, they were still fucking sick. Virtus Pro, the Plow. Virtus Plow, right, are the 5th best team in the world in 2015.
That's true. That is impressive.
Think what that lineup would do in this era, mate. It would fucking demolish everyone. They wouldn't lose a tournament. They would shit down G2's throats. Like they would absolutely maul them like a fucking lion. And they're the 5th best team in the world in this lineup. Then you've got the fucking Last of the Summer Wine Nip lineup. You've got the fallen Cold Zero Luminosity with the 7th best team in the world, mate. Like, fuck off. Like, you can't tell me we haven't lost a fucking step in like this era when you like just size it up. I don't think it's nostalgia. I genuinely think teams are bad right now, and the problem is it's not because I think the players are worse. It's just because I don't think they can get the continuity right now for some reason. I don't know if it's because the calendar's more fucked up. I don't know if it's because players are taking more liberties. But the reality is, as I said, I think it was just before you joined the chat, we are going into an ESL Pro League where I think 5 teams are using stand-ins, and like another 3 on top of that are using first-time lineups that no one's ever seen before with permanent replacements. I don't think that's happened any other year, mate.
You definitely could be right about the Pro League sentiment there. There are a handful of teams here that should be better than what they're putting out there. If I want to pick apart the 2015 lineup and the basis of this argument, I think we look at that Envy lineup and we know now that Kiyoshima was a bit of a toxic asset and that he was someone that was, I guess, mentally unfit to be on a top tier team.
Not
I think we know
him.
apparently, but apparently based off of how everybody has treated him since then.
Did I ever tell you the story about how at Cluj Poker he told me to my face while trying to start a fight with me that he was better than Shocks?
Well, then, you know what? I have words that I wouldn't say on a live stream about that statement that I'm going to refrain from putting out there into the public.
I mean, to be fair, he was framing it through the lens of, I'm better for a team than Shocks. And I was I was just going, I don't agree with that at all, though, still. I don't think you're a better teammate. I was looking at him and I'm saying, mate, I know you've just won a major and you're feeling it, right? And you're drunk, but you have to understand there is no world where anyone would take you over Shocks in a team. And then he just started going up. He started doing this thing where he was saying to me, "I'm an idiot. Me no speaky Inglando," and I'm going, "You just need to go to bed, mate." It was so fucking surreal. I'll have to tell the full story properly sometime. But anyway, sorry, go on.
No, that's literally me after I hit on a girl in a bar and I just like miss the mark and I just say, you know what, you didn't understand me, and then I just walk away. Then I go to the next bar. That's it. That's all.
Good man. That's Riz. That's Riz right there. Like, top Riz.
Okay. Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, in that itself, like, I mean, I don't know. Like, Kiyoshima didn't feel like a positive asset to me. Happy also was probably playing. I mean, he was. It's not probably. He was playing that outdated lurky style, and he was trying to slightly adjust his game. But still, I think this Envy roster at the time was kind of playing like that Deathball 4-1. So I don't even actually think that their style was that good against Fnatic, who was #1, playing just like basically what we're seeing today, which is just defaulty. Like this Fnatic at 2015 was the best defaulting team ever. And that's why they were so fun to watch, and that's why it was so fun to watch their comms videos, because they would just default, but then one guy would say, hey, I'm going to make a play, and then they would make the play, and then it'd be sick. And that's why, like, in itself, especially knowing their comms at that time from that ESL Pro League that ESL Pro League where they released the comms, it's like, things weren't getting that crazy there either. And I do think that in the 8 years since then that we have advanced a considerable amount, that if they were to call those kinds of strats today, that those wouldn't actually be that effective.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I do understand that. Yeah, I think, well, actually, like, explain this to me. This is like a mad tangent, but I'll leverage your expertise here, because the whole BlameF thing is really bothering me.
BlameF? BlameF?
Yeah.
Okay.
With the community saying that, like, Astralis can never be successful with him in the team because he baits too much. And then it's like, you go and look at the opening kill stat, and he's the #1 on Astralis and things like this. Right. And it really, really bugs me that people are, like, saying, he's playing that happy lurk style where it's just all about stat padding. And I don't think he's doing that. So, I mean, and I know Astralis are nowhere in the rankings right now, but I mean, I think he's a really good player. Like, for example, like, maybe this shows I am deranged and just a hater, but, I think I'd take BlameF over JKS any day of the week, like, if I was building a roster. And so I want...
As would I.
Oh, okay. Right.
Yeah.
So,
I think BlameF is better.
So, I mean, isn't that proof, though? Like, I suppose on an individual basis, that heavy... I mean, I know he doesn't play it, but he's the closest player we've got right now to, like, a heavy lurker, I guess. Isn't that proof that it could work?
Yeah, and I mean, I think there's a couple maps where he doesn't really do that. Like Inferno, he's the banana T-side guy. So like, I mean, that's literally a spot where you have to fight early on and judge what utility's being thrown at you. And if I were an IGL, BlameF would be such an easy call to be like, who do I want first on my team? I'd either pick an Opper or a Rifler. And if I'm picking a Rifler, BlameF's pretty high on that list because he's a guy that has a couple spots that he simply has a knack for, and Banana on Inferno is one of them. Like, he is so good at just weaving around utility, probably also internalizing what utility he's seeing, and then recognizing in the mid round, hey guys, they use 3 mollies at Banana, and I think you guys called that there's one at mid. We could probably just be exec at 40 seconds in this round. Like, this is an easy one for us. And when you mentioned the fact that he is like a little bit more of an early round player, I am just looking at the stats here. I didn't watch the close qualifier as closely, but I mean, 18.9%. He's attempting that opening duel in the close qualifiers. He's winning it 73% of the time. Like, that's bonkers to me. That is a number I want all the time. If I have a player like that, then we're winning games. We are simply winning games. And for me, BlameF, the scrutiny that I am seeing from him is surprisingly actually different than the scrutiny that I was throwing out to Rops in 2021, where I was like, Rops is baiting viciously, and we are not talking about this at all. And everybody is in love with Rops for some reason. And I don't know what that is. Is it because he's a meek guy from Estonia as opposed to like a big buff guy that is from Denmark? Like, I don't get it. I literally don't get it, because there's nothing different about their playstyle in these years. In 2023 early, BlameF versus mid 2021 Rops. If you watch these demos back to back, the only different, like, there's no difference. There's straight up no difference in these demos, and yet people are somehow acting like they love one and hate the other, or that they have different ideas about one and not the other. And that's what's so crazy to me, because they're both late round. They're both, generally speaking, late round players, but BlameF is actually playing some spots where he is an earlier round player. So I can't even always say this about BlameF. Like, I can say it about some maps like, I don't know, Nuke, or like probably I don't know if they play Mirage a little bit, you know, like certain maps I'm like, yeah, BlameF's fucking lurking and he's fucking doing nothing, you know. It's just he's just fucking baiting. He is, it's fine. Like, we can say Ancient, yeah, sure. Like, he's just fucking doing nothing. But
I definitely agree as well, though. I have noticed this. Like, look, I said it the other day on stream. I'll say it to you. Like, people. So with the Rops thing, I agree, because I think he is a little bit of like a nerd idol, right? And I think BlameF is probably, like, personality-wise, is a little bit isolating, because he's, you know, been out in complexity. You know, I remember when they were like bigging him up in complexity with the Dallas Cowboys buyout, and they were like going, you know, we've got a player who's built like a linebacker, he can play on the football team, this shit, right? And obviously, like, to the average CS player, the average CS fan, I should say, you know, because all the players are fucking, you know, mega pressured by the community to have like super high body image standards now. But whatever. I won't get into, you know, fucking how we've had like, we're rising like steroid use and eating disorders.
I'm body positive in all respects.
Yeah, it's like, you know, those fat players get hammered so much right now. You know, you're not gonna see, like, you know, people must have noticed it's the end of the era of having a fat guy to win on the team, right? That's gone, because no one can take the fucking hateful abuse. But anyway. So BlameF fucking basically, like, represents, like, all the things the average fan would feel a bit like.
Yeah, PEDs.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying BlameF is using PEDs. That's not what I'm saying. Well, that's definitely not what I'm saying. What I am saying is he is.
We can assume this like Flusha. Did Flusha use hacks? We can't say for certain. Did BlameF use steroids?
I'm not even doing that, Maui. I'm saying he's 100% natty.
I'm saying it.
He's 100% natty, right? And he's a gym monster.
Sure, you
right,
think that.
Right. Yeah, no, I absolutely do. And anyway, but the point being, he's a jock, and the average you know, esports fan can't fuck with that. But you take someone like Timid, like Rops, and, you know, he's like, yeah, I just went and did the kill, and plus his legacy story, how everyone said he was a cheater, and then he went to face it, it and it was epic. You know, obviously, like basically, it's like the Hooksy factor. What people think they're feeling is respect, but what you're really feeling is a form of pity. That's why everybody adores Hooksy right now. It's not because he's good, you know. It's just you sort of pitied him because he was getting like loads of abuse, like more than any other player in the scene when they didn't qualify for the major. I mean, he put a tweet out like saying, you know, it wasn't good enough. But to be fair, it wasn't even like the level of apology that the fans wanted. So all the fans were replying to him like, "Fuck you, leave," you know, check stealer. It was really bad. It was really, really bad. But then, you know, they've come out the other side. Everyone pities him, and now he's winning. So it's like a super cool story for the fans that pitied him in the first place. But anyway, the point being, I think, like, to bring it back, that I don't see any team that doesn't have like major fucked up, like really fucked up flaws, like comparative. Like, so you were saying, you know, every era has flawed teams. Totally agree. I can't remember a time where I can point at any team, like throw a dart in a map and say they've got two problems coming out of a player break. That's the key distinction here. The player break is where you fix your shit, usually. What's happened in this player break, everyone's broken their shit. I've never seen that before, mate. Like, Navi, we've talked about that, like bedding in a new player, Electronics forms dipped, Bit doesn't even look like the same dude, Simple's fully checked out mentally, flaming his coach in fucking interviews. I mean, that's crazy. Vitality, Dupree's on paternity leave, Major Skate playing great, Apex ain't playing great, they're bedding in Spinks, new player. Outsiders win a major, kick a player from the fucking lineup immediately. And now they're just utterly dog shit. No one can even explain what's happened to Outsiders. Liquid, they're trying to make a tier 2 AWPer, a tier 1 AWPer, with a Valorant player as an IGL. And their star player, the one that you can usually back, is having career worst form. Plus your Kindar is like, is he an entry fragger? Is he playing that pure role? Turns out he isn't a lot of the time now, but that's definitely his strength. Loads of issues
Turns
there.
out he's the coach and in-game leader, too.
Yeah, and that's another thing as well. It's like, is NA so fucking insecure that you need some fucking, you know, Latvian dude to come out and just take over all your shit? Like, I don't understand that. He's become the IGL, he's become the mouthpiece, he's become the star. It's super weird how much room he's been given. Again, I've never seen that before. But
I'll say the flaws of previous years could be characterized differently, but I don't necessarily think that it's fair to say that the years prior, the flaws were that much less than what we're seeing now. Because, for example, I think that you transport this heroic lineup into many years of the past, and I do think that they would have done incredibly well. They would have won multiple S tier trophies in a year. I think that this G2 lineup is proving to be too much for them to handle, but I think that this heroic lineup, drop them in that 2019 Astralis era, they would have stolen some trophies from them for sure. This heroic lineup is playing incredibly well.
I mean, 2019's an interesting one because for me, I think 2019 is probably like the last time we had a truly interesting era, because yes, undoubtedly Astralis was still sort of like, you know, the top dogs, but you remember when we had that great Liquid rivalry? EG were relevant.
Yeah.
100 Thieves started winning tournaments just before they got dropped. You know, and there was still. I mean, that was no, you can't really count FaZe. That was Cold's era FaZe. So fuck that. That was after Nico sold his friend a bill of goods, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But you know, I still think there was enough in 2019 to say, yeah, that's a good era. And I definitely agree, though. If G2 and Heroic played in that era, it would have made that era way more diverse. I think 2020, I think the start of the online era, I think it's really, I think that era is like, it's a shame it was online, because like,
yeah,
that's like a really, there was some really, that was where we innovated. That was the last time we truly innovated in CS, in my opinion. When you had that Gambit Navi rivalry, that was sick. That was straight fire. Like, that was like a really good time for CS.
I think that the heroic the way that heroic plays right now is a bit innovative. Like I said earlier today.
Sure, but I think would I be right in assessing that? Do you think the way that people are playing these, like you say, the way heroic are playing these mid rounds and being very proactive in terms of their outlook and optimal movements around the map, is this a reaction to the meta it looked like we were going to go into with that fucking chronically bad outsider style?
I don't know if I could speak per se on the way that these teams interacted with each other. Like I don't think they're like philosophers that are just like looking at each other's work and then saying necessarily, I'm going to now move to my own school of thought because I want to be reactionary to yours. But it's more like, to me, I think that they just thought that this is something that they could do and that it was practical and pragmatic and that they could implement it regularly and that they could build their own reactions and protocols based off of how they see the game. And I think it suits them really well. And I think that it's a style of play that in the LAN era where personally speaking, I think that when you're in this LAN era and you're playing like Cloud9 or like how Cloud9 want to play, you want to be the ones that are a little bit more active because Cloud9 / Gambit have shown that once you switch to the LAN era, playing like that's really inconsistent. Playing on the back foot, playing your quote unquote favorite spots, favorite two-man setups, gamble stacking is a lot less consistent, and it ruins your mentality. Whereas heroic live and die by their decisions in a way that forces them to trust Cadian, trust whoever's making that mid-round call. But on the other hand, you look at what the meta was developing to be in 2020, 2021 on the online era, and it was almost like this is what Groove's calling / Naphany, and on the big stages, this actually just breaks them.
Yeah. And look, I'm not as down on Nafani as you are, but by the way, Nafoni is an epic nickname. That's like that is literally your what about today, dickhead. That's the best thing you've ever done.
Nafoni.
Yeah, that's so fucking good. But I mean, I do think what shook him to the core was the fundamental difference of being able to develop in an online era and then getting to LAN, and that stark difference. I think really shook him. Because he thought it was going to be the same. Like, clearly, from all the interview material, all of his thought process, he thought he was going to be able to just walk into stadium matches and it would feel like, playing in his bedroom. Yeah. And I think he's a young player. He didn't have a frame of reference. And I think that critical crack in the confidence definitely is what's holding them back. I mean, that's still mind-blowing to me, that Cloud9 team. I don't know what you feel about the Buster move. But the idea they're not even in the top 10 now, and they're losing to IHC. It's mental. Again, it's like, this is what I mean about this era. It's like, how can a lineup that good that was like relevant in 20? Like, how can a lineup with Shiro and Exile be like outside of the top 10 when OG are in that top 10? It's like I said, everything in CS just feels so broken right now.
It is hilarious when you say when OG are in the top 10 because I agree with that. But that is the point that I've been harping on for the last year, is that this style is inconsistent and it actually is negatively affecting their star players. Because once again at Katowice, we saw Exile and Shiro perform wonderfully, admirably, they themselves were taking over positions, and yet they still don't even win 2 matches at the main event of Katowice. It's pathetic because this team clearly has the skill to be going deep, and that's why it's just anti-IGLing from Naphany. Nafoni is saying, guys, We're gonna split up. It's literally like Fred from fucking Scooby-Doo saying "split up, gang," and then watching his players fall apart one by one, wondering why the monster is getting all of them, and then suddenly it's like Scooby, or like basically in this case like fucking Axile or Shiro is just revealing the mask at the end of the round and saying, "We got him, gang," and it's literally like, "We got one alive. Our economy's fucked." And that's it. Like, let's do it again. Let's split up, gang. Like, you're literally hurting your team by calling like this. It's disgraceful. It is disgraceful. I would rather see any Eastern European in there as the in-game leader. I gave Boomich before. I'll still say Jerry, Chopper. They have reasons to be on this roster as opposed to him.
I mean, also as well, it's not even like, I mean, like his contribution in that. I watched that IHC game, and it was appalling. Like, I think he got like 10 kills. Like
he was running through smokes, looking the wrong way as IHC has mid control on Mirage, and Nafany's just looking at fuck all and getting shot in the side of the head because he doesn't understand the timings or what his teammate's flash is gonna do. It is like the worst teamwork I saw from any team at Kato.
Yeah, 0.77 rating, by the way, over 8 maps.
Yep.
Over his last 8 maps. And so, this is what I mean as well, because I made this point. I said it's not that Hooksy's got better, it's just that every team has a Hooksy now. And look, again, the fans hated that. No, how can you say that about the Giga chat? It's like, no, loads of teams have these like IGLs that are and not just IGLs, sometimes just players that are playing at like a 0.8 level in your team. And I don't think in an era where things are a little bit disjointed and people are relying on individuals more than they are structure, I don't think that's tenable. I think that's another reason why teams like this are getting found out, because, you know, people aren't giving you the time to execute your brilliant playbook strat because you ain't got one and they can't be asked. They know they can just bang your head off. I mean, the mad thing about that is, right, they're like ranked 13th at the moment, just looking at the page, but they had, I think both Shiro and Exile were like in the top 6 from that event.
Top 8. They were top
8. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it's like you have got to, like I think like one of my regulars like lost his shit with me, and I think I ended up banning him from the channel because like he
sure.
You know, as is my way, but because he basically was like saying I was wrong to say Exile bottles it in big games, and he said that the only sample size of that is the major, and then he went through and pulled all the stats, and I guess looking back he sort of did have a point. His argument might have been more robust than me. Mine was just based on feelings. He Ben Shapiro'd me and based his on facts. But at the end of the day, I mean, bottom line, I still respect Exile as a player massively. Like, and I think Shiro, a team with Shiro and Exile and Hobbit just should be top 5.
Yes. Yeah. No. Totally agree. That's why I'm so hard on Nafany. Because I would give Exile and Shiro to any team that is ranked above them for any 2 players almost in the world, and they're just a better team. I think the only exceptions are probably, I mean, excluding language barrier here, basically like I don't even know. I think you could actually probably you could consider that for like any team other than Heroic and G2 right now. Like literally.
Yeah,
like,
I agree.
Yeah, just two for two. Doesn't even matter.
So look, I won't keep you all night. I'll start putting a pin in the debate.
Yeah.
I definitely think that. So maybe this is extreme, because I've said this is the worst era in CSGO since 2013, right? Which I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if that's actually empirically true, but it's what my brain is telling me, so I've said it with no filter. But I think can I win you over a little bit to the central, you know, to bring you over closer to the center of the opinion in that this era is like particularly weak, and that's why G2 is thriving.
Hey, I think G2 would be a #1 team in a handful of eras. I'm gonna stay to that. I will stay to what we saw from G2 Kato. They would be very good at many of the best tournaments of all time, would they be an era-defining team in some of the past time periods, such as when Astralis were having that era? Probably not. Probably not, because I think Astralis played the best team CS we have ever seen, and maybe ever will see. But I do think that this G2 could give them a goddamn run for their money.
It's interesting. Strong. So some of the reactions in chat here, out of your fucking mind. Maui is so based. Maui is a fraud. G2 is the weak-ass version of 2019 Liquids. Interesting.
I think they structurally play better. Okay, hey, I'll respond to that one personally.
Yeah.
I would say that firepower-wise, that 2019 Liquid was unmatched in the history of Counter-Strike. Yeah. And so you could say that
a lot of people thought they should have done better in time travel then.
I think that they probably could beat anybody.
Yeah,
but
somebody said they should have been second. Yeah, they said they should have been second over Fnatic 2015, which I don't agree with that. But then again, that might be boomer talk, you know?
I think that they are really, really, really like up there with, in terms of firepower wise, they're the best team of all time, bar none. The only argument is that obviously they didn't have a world class operator, but at that time when Nitro was playing on a couple of the maps, Overpass especially, top 3 operator at that time, which almost feels, my skin crawls that I say that Nitro was a top 3 operator at any point in history, period. But I also think that G2 could have gave them a run for their money. I'd say this. G2 played better team CS.
I'm not coming along for that. I've never believed Nitro was a good offer. I'm not coming along.
On Overpass, he was a top 3 when they were winning the Grand Slam.
How many
when
maps
he won those tournaments
again?
Yeah, when he was playing Overpass only, he was a great CT operator. When he was defending that one A site, that sometimes. Okay, no, but no, I think G2 is a really, really, really good team. That's kind of the end of my spiel on this one. Yeah, right. I mean, either way, thanks for having me on. I'm glad I got to talk to you about all of this.
We should just hang out more often anyway. Like I was just saying, I've like basically like I had like a pretty, you know, I had like a prestige job over at Deserto where I was like, you know, I always felt I had to be doing a bit more and stuff like that, and it was really eating up my time. But I basically realized that, like, I actually do sort of enjoy streaming and just shooting the shit. And I've always, I say every year, I'm going to do more of it. And basically, I waited until I got to a point where I'm just like a 1K Andy. I should have done it when I was way more popular, but I just never did. I was always on the journalism thing. But now that I accept that esports can't be saved, I just want to sit in my bedroom and just talk shit. So, like, if at any point I ever say anything that's fucking mental and you want to pull my card on it, just call me. Like, call me on Discord immediately. Like, I'm looking at my Discord right now and I can see Anders is playing Diablo 3 again. So I might just call him to stage a fucking intervention, you know what I mean? So, but yeah, we should all hang out more, because I'm obviously not on the circuit, so I don't see you. I don't see you boys, so, and I do wish you all.
Hey, I have 2.5 weeks off before I fly out to Pro League, so maybe I just take a train up there.
Shit, man, yeah, I keep forgetting, like, in my mind, George is walking around California in a fucking Hawaiian shirt with only one button fucking done up, just like, you know, living the dream with your fucking Chad jawline. You know what I mean? Yeah, we should just do it. We should just get together for some beers or something.
I'll message you about that off air. Because I would definitely be down to I need to see more of England, if I'm being completely honest. That's
you know, I can show you Birmingham if you want. I don't know if you'll fucking enjoy it. Like, I could take you to some cool places, though. I could take you up to Newcastle and show you some shit. Like, take you to.
Oh, I would love that. I would love. Yeah. I mean, Hugo owes me a Scotland drive. We said we were going to do that last year during some break, and I think I left during the player break. I think I went somewhere. I forgot where I went, but yeah, he said he would take me there. So you know what? If you could take me there, then that's all good too. Also, I'm officially an Arsenal fan, so if they're ever playing over there, then
come on.
Yeah.
Grow the fuck up, Maui. For fuck's sake.
It's my fault. It's my fault that I chose a team.
When did you choose them? Like, come on.
I chose them in like when they won. I was like watching in like 2013, and like I think they won the FA Cup then, and I've been like
it's still respectable. Fan. It's respectable. That's respectable. Like 10 years ago, it's respectable. I'll give you that. Like they were declining a little bit by that point, I think.
Yeah. Okay. But hey, at least they're not Man City.
Yeah,
At
true.
least they're not
If you said City, like just terminate.
Why would I choose them though? That's the crazy.
Because
Okay,
people like
All
to
right.
win. Glory supporters, they're called. It's a real phenomenon. It's like all the Astralis fans.
Yeah, I guess. No, I'm a gunner. I'm a gunner.
All right, fair enough.
Gunner for life.
But yeah,
Okay.
so let's plan something. Like say, I mean, you can just talk, like you can be in Birmingham in an hour, mate. I can take you to some cool spots. Like we've got,
Hell yeah.
We've got like the oldest working cinema in Britain. I can take you to the weird fucked up place that is Bourneville, whereas like Cadbury's chocolate.
Yeah.
Well, the guy who made that was like a fucking Puritan, right? And
Okay.
but he was also big on his workers' rights. He was like, if you were temperate and a good worker, you had the right to live in like nice houses in a nice neighborhood. So he basically built like super nice houses for all of his staff, but it's like a dry area. No one's allowed to serve alcohol there, right? So, but there is one working men's club, which under the laws, because it's a private bar, you can get it, but that burnt down recently. So anyway, forget all that, right? But yeah, I can take you there. And loads of Americans always want to go to the Cadbury's factory because they think it's going to be like fucking Willy Wonka's or something. But so there is shit to do in Birmingham, like mad tourist shit. But also there's right now we're in a golden era for opening like new bars. I can take you down the fucking the gay
Amazing.
village. The gay village in Birmingham is lit as fuck, mate. I'm out there
Hell
this
yeah.
weekend, so
Hell fucking yeah.
all right, brother. Well, look,
Yeah,
thanks so much for contributing
Could
to
be
the
next
stream.
weekend. Do
Yeah.
it next weekend. Next
Yeah.
Sunday.
Just get him
Next
at
Sunday.
DMs, boss.
I'm always looking what I'm doing on next Sunday. Okay, all right. Yeah. I'll let you know. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
And anytime, you know that, mate. Much love to you, and I'll speak to you soon.
Yeah, keep it up. Keep it up. You're killing it.
All right,
Peace.
thanks, boss. Peace. Right, there you go, Maui. Good old Maui Snake, see? People don't know all the talent love me. The scene doesn't, of course, but all the talent love me.